Welcome back to special coverage of Hurricane Helene. I'm Peter Bush along with Kelly Burns. NBC2 and ABC7 are simulcasting right now so that we can combine our teams and bring you the best coverage as the storm passes through.
Yeah, we just got the 5 o'clock advisory on this storm, on this hurricane. Ayllson Ray, our chief meteorologist, is going to break it all down for us.
So no surprise here, it has intensified yet again. It has rapidly intensified. It's now at 125 mile per hour winds. It's a very healthy Category 3 on the verge of becoming a Category 4. So that cutoff will be at 130 miles per hour. Once it gets to 131, it's at Category 4. There is no reason why it couldn't get there. But when we talk about 135, 125, 131, the difference is very small. It's just going to be a category shift, but the winds are going to be substantial. Couple that with the strong forward motion, 23 miles per hour. It has again picked up its speed, and that trough that's kind of bringing it along for the ride off to the north is helping it intensify, coupled with very conducive environment at the surface, the warm water, the low wind shear, the tropical moisture. All of these things are helping the storm intensify. Now you notice that kind of sharp cutoff here to the west where that blue sky is. That's because there's dry air over there. But sometimes these storms, when they come so powerful, that dry air tries to come on in, but they've created such their own environment that it's really hard to do anything to that storm. If that dry air is going to make a huge difference at this point, it would have been had to do in the earlier stages when it wasn't as well organized. This is this healthy kind of system kind of doing its own thing. I have an analogy, but it would take too long to explain. It's in my head. I'll tell it another time about how that would compare to a healthy storm, getting some drier air in on it. All right, so Category 3, we're on the verge of Category 4, expected to make landfall within the next, say, 5 hours, if not earlier than that, especially if it continues to pick up speed. So this is already to the west of Tampa. Just 3 hours ago, it was to the west of Fort Myers. So it's traveling. I mean, when we drive to Tampa, it takes about 2 hours. So it is booking it pretty well for a storm. Here we are on the First Alert Live Doppler radar. Lots of more bands are going to come spiraling in for our region tonight. Now, as far as tornadic activity, we just had a tornado warning for parts of the Cape Hayes. That has since lifted, but it's still pretty impressive looking on radar here, just west of Northport, or excuse me, well north of Northport as it continues to move to the east there, northeast of Sarasota. What to expect when we look at the winds now? Some gusty winds just to the west of Boca Grande. And also we have, once you're over the Gulf of Mexico, when you don't have as much over the water, it's a lot easier for these storms to kind of be a little bit more impressive. North Captiva probably getting a good chunk of wind right now from this area. Again, that tornado warning is for Sarasota County, not for us. Here's kind of a wider view of those bands moving on in. Bokeelia, North Captiva, St. James City, up through Cape Hayes. This is where a lot of the stronger thunderstorms are right now, spiraling around the system. It's intensifying. Not surprising here that the storms are kind of following suit with those strong bands and energizing as well. Going forward, we don't have as much energy farther to the south, and for that, the National Weather Service in Miami has shaved off some tornado warnings in Collier, Glades, and Hendry. The tornado watch, meaning conditions are possible going forward, remain for DeSoto, Charlotte, and Lee until 8 o'clock. And note that also includes that marine warning for areas just off the coast. And hopefully, I thought I wouldn't have to say this, but apparently we did. If there's any boats out there, they would be under the suspect of getting some of those strong winds as well. No other watches or warnings have been shaved off just yet, but the rain is still continuing. For more on that, I'm going to toss it over to Rob Duns.
Yeah, let's take another look at NBC2 First Alert Live Doppler radar over Lee County. Just a reminder that Lee County, Charlotte County, and DeSoto County will remain under a tornado watch until 8 p.m. tonight. And there are a few cells, as Ayllson was pointing out to you, just to the west of Pine Island that do look a little suspect, especially after what's been popping up off the coast of Englewood. When you look at the radar reflectivity here, there's about 4 of them that right now are crossing over top of the Lee County barrier islands, moving very rapidly toward the north. And all of these have have somewhat of a suspect little feature there that sometimes can produce enough rotation to perhaps at times produce a water spout or a funnel cloud, or on occasionally can produce a brief tornado touchdown. See how all these have that little kink feature in there? So that's something that we're going to have to watch very closely behind the scenes, because it's a very good possibility sometimes with these tornadoes being so small that they're so small that the radar can't even pick up on them. And as we've seen how fast things are moving here this afternoon, this is certainly something we'll want to keep in mind. So this line here that runs just to the west of Rotunda, now just to the west here of Pine Island, everything here is moving in this really rapid motion off toward the north. It's almost north, but perhaps it's better to say north-northeast, because with the last few radar frames there, you'll find how they have been moving more toward the coastlines both of Charlotte and Lee County. So if you were to use these yellow arrows, the neighborhoods where in the next 15 minutes these downpours moving through that could perhaps have some broad rotation will be moving toward like the north end of Pine Island toward the Bokeelia community within the next 15 minutes, and then the southern end of the Cape Hayes Peninsula, including neighborhoods around Cape Hayes and Placida and Gasparilla, and then eventually the Rotunda area, and then back toward Manasota Key and Englewood. All of these areas, even though there are no active tornado warnings on these cells, it should be paying super close attention for the next 20 minutes as these very fast-moving downpours that may show some broad signs of rotation move inland from the Gulf of Mexico, moving very rapidly toward the north. Now, just north of our area to the Northport area, there's a tornado warning that's still ongoing. This was the one, the cell that initially had the tornado warning for Charlotte County. It's now way to the north of Interstate 75 and now to the west of Mayaca City, so very much outside of the NBC2 viewing area. Right this moment and over the next half hour, the focus when it comes to these rain bands will be on those neighborhoods I mentioned from Bokeelia to Englewood through western Charlotte and western Lee County. But there is an awful lot of rain offshore here that later on tonight has the potential of moving closer to our area as the hurricane starts to make more of a path toward the northeast. So it's been a long day. We're not out of the woods just yet as we continue to watch what these cells do in areas of western Lee County and western Charlotte County. With that, I believe I will send it back over to the news desk. And by the way, if any of these cells do start to show some signs of rotation, I'll jump back over top of the newscast and keep you folks in western Charlotte and western Lee County ahead of what's going on. Back to you then, all right?
Rob, thank you. We have some